Hi there, this is Alvin, and welcome to the Kickstart Commerce podcast, where we share search marketing and domain investing strategies to help grow your business. In today's episode, our guest is Arif Mirza, a longtime domain investor and consultant at NameCult.com, host and the producer of The Domain Social, and the producer of Paige Howe's The Domain Show. Today, Arif and I discuss how developing a DJ site that reached nearly 30,000 DJs or a community of DJs paved the way into domain investing for him. We also chat about NameCult and how he and others leveraged it to level up as domain investors. Arif then shares critical formulas and key indicators about managing his inbound-only domain portfolio into the black. We then discuss how Arif successfully leverages his interpersonal skills as a casino employee to negotiate buying and selling domain names. And last but not least, we talk about what's next on the horizon for the Domain Social and Steamie The Dog. So with that, Arif, welcome and thank you for making time to join us today, my man.
It's my honor and a pleasure to be here with you. It's fun to be on the other side of the microphone sometimes, or the camera, I should say.
Indeed. So to kick things off, we got to square something off because is it Aref? Is it Arif? Is it Arif? What is it?
I pronounce it Arif.
Okay.
Arif, yeah. So, but there are one or two other Arifs or other ones in the industry who might pronounce it otherwise. But I'm born and raised in Montreal, and that's the easiest. It's not even the traditional way of saying it. Traditional way is with a hard A.
So if we were saying it with the hard A, so it would be Arif.
Arif, yeah. Which is that doesn't bother me either. That's fine too. That's fine.
All right. So Arif or Arif, but not Arif.
Yeah. I had an 8th grade teacher who I got in trouble with all the time. He was from England. He pronounced it Arif all the time. Arif, go in the corner. Arif, whatever.
And that'll be easy for me to always remember. Just it's kind of equating it to the Christmas wreath. It's like, no, it's not wreath. It's not Arif.
Not reefer.
No, it's not reefer. It's none of that stuff.
Riff. I have a couple of friends who call me Riff, but yeah, that's okay too. Doesn't bother me. But yeah,
well, I guess, sure. Man. So to kick things off, Arif, let's share with the listeners a bit about yourself, just who you are, your personal, professional background.
All right. Well, I started with domains when I registered a domain for I want to call it a website, but I think like most people, when they start their first web project, it wasn't really an intentional website. Right. Just started off I started off tinkering around. I got myself a Teach Yourself HTML book in 24 hours back in the very late 90s. I think it was 98, 99. And just tinkered around. And it was it was one page with a link to Hotmail and ICQ and I think Real Audio or whatever it was. And just my own sort of launch page. And then I added things. And over time, it became it was actually fairly quick. It became a really large DJ club music website community. By 2001, 2002-ish, I had over 30,000 members. So, wow. I was doing interviews with Tiesto and all those big names in the club music industry. And so that was really how I got started. And then, after a few months before it got really big and after I kind of had those 3 links on that one little webpage, I, registered a domain name. I think it was with Network Solutions.
Womp, womp, womp.
Yeah, but I've never I think it was April 99. I think it was when I did that. So yeah. So and then over the years, I when it comes to I've always I don't know if people know this, but I work at the Montreal Casino as well. Well, not currently because of COVID. That's kind of on a day-to-day basis at this point in time. However, so I've always been doing that even since before that. So all my domain stuff and my web stuff has been quote unquote on the side, full-time on the side, I just recall it, right? I work 35 hours a week there, and then I'd work on my website on the side 40 hours a week, So over the years, I had a couple tiny little sites here and there, nothing big, but I did accumulate, sometimes dozens, sometimes even a little bit over 100 domains that were to be developed, right? If ever I figure out how to, I always say, I don't know, not really a funny joke, but it's I always say I'll get to it when I figure out how to make 30-hour days. It's or the 8-day weeks. It's but it's just that those never happen. And it's like, I think that's how most of us got into domains, right? Is, well, I don't know about yourself, but I know, like, for me, it was just like at a certain point I had a lot, and then I'm like, okay. And then in 2016, I was just, doing like I usually do every few months. I check the GoDaddy sort of expiration stuff and just search for stuff. And it wasn't really anything structured. It was just every now and then I'd check, and there was, it happened to be around the anniversary of .co. And so the .co had, I think, had launched 8 years before. So now, knowing now what I know now, not at that time. That time I was like, oh wow, this is a ton of good stuff. I didn't really realize that. But so it was the anniversary. So there was a wave of really great one-word .cos coming through the expiration stream at GoDaddy, and like single terms and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, so I asked myself, I go, what am I going to do here? I go, I want some of these domains. They're really good. I could build them out.
Right.
But like, that's why I said the last however many times, it's not going to happen, right? Or my plan is to make it happen, but I go, if I buy these domains, then I got to get serious about also being open to the possibility of reselling them. And that was end of the summer, 2016. And so that's what I did. I don't know if I got 100 of them at the first. It was, I probably got a little over 100 over a couple of months. But at the same time, I registered for, one of the large domain forums out there, and I started listening to Domain Sherpa and Domain and Wire, and like all, those were the two main ones. And going back and listening and re-listening to all the old podcasts and absorbing all my initial domain knowledge through all these things. And that's how I kind of got started to being open to selling them. And I, started listing them here and there. I was a lot more organized back then because I had much fewer domains. When you have 300 domains, it's a lot easier to list them everywhere than when you have 3,000.
Tell the truth.
Challenge.
Tell the truth.
Yeah. So that's it. And then one thing led to another. When you start, obviously you don't make that many sales.
Right.
Some of my choices were probably not the best, but looking back, and I'm actually kind of a little bit impressed in that if I take the domains that I acquired that first year and set them aside, so even in the first year those weren't profitable, but as of today, that batch of domains is more profitable than not. So that's a cool thing. It's like, okay, I didn't make too many mistakes. Part of that is because I already had websites in the past. I kind of knew a little bit what I was doing, and part of that was because I jumped in with trying to learn as much as possible before buying too much. And buying too much, I guess, is always a relative term. And I did buy a lot of stuff. And first year I did drop stuff, but luckily I think overall I did okay. And now the last couple of years have been pretty good to me. So yeah.
So let's go back then, Arif. Now, and one of the things that is so interesting to me about your story is, at least from everything that I hear, it wasn't that you really intentionally entered into domain investing per se. It was more of you took unknowingly a domain development approach.
Correct. Although I will be totally honest, I haven't really developed anything in the last more than 10 years. Oh, no, that's actually not quite true, right? So I did, NameCult, I guess, is a development, but the thing is that it's WordPress, right? So it's like, it's more, it was 10 minutes to put up, and then 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours a night of going through lists and putting them up and sharing them with everybody else. So that was I guess that is kind of content. And but aside from that, it's the serious development stuff was way back before it was as difficult as it is today with all the different screen sizes and such. Back then you just had that one screen size. It was whatever the lowest common denominator of over 95+% of people had a screen resolution. That's all you had to worry about. And HTML was simple. Now it's not so simple.
Retina displays and mobile displays, and what are the media CSS media queries, what are the line breaks and all this other stuff. Back then we were just designing for CRTs. I
was when I got the forum, obviously the forum software I had purchased, but everything else was Notepad.
Wow.
Well, Notepad, because obviously that was the big dilemma back then. Is it Notepad, or do you use like front page, one of those ones? And like all those other ones added so much code and bulked things up. And even if I had high speed really early, I think I had high speed internet back in 98, even before I started with a lot of stuff, but most people didn't, right? So you always had to work them in the equation, right? Even if it was a big music site, but yeah.
So then let me ask you this. So Arf, like obviously I guess you said it was somewhere either 2016 or a little bit after that. So I guess when you first started this site, I guess that was what year?
Oh, that my website was 1999.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
99. So let's just call it 2000 to 2016.
Yeah.
Did you know that there was a domain industry like domaining.com and all of these other sites?
So overall, no. I know at one point I did get an offer on my website. So it wasn't, I don't think it wasn't really for the domain, but it was, more for the website. And that was I don't remember because I didn't really take it seriously. It was I want to say it was a mid 5-figure offer. So for me back then, I was a lot younger. It was like, oh, okay, it's a sizable amount, but like, I don't know if it's true. And it's like, no, I want to grow this thing. And, eventually things happen and I ended up moving on to other things. But it was, I looked into the aftermarket at GoDaddy and seen obviously some domains go for higher prices, but it never really clicked. And that was probably a little bit later on as I was just buying one domain here or there. I guess the answer is no. I kind of wish the answer was yes, because I would be in a very different place today. Yeah. So
then you didn't know anything like about Rick's, what was it?
None of that. No.
So wow.
I was just kind of slightly aware that there was something going on in GoDaddy auctions that I checked every now and then because I would do a general search at GoDaddy and it would point me to their auction platform, and that was it. Yeah, nothing else. Yeah.
Gotcha. Because I think I stumbled across you.
Yeah,
maybe like on Domain Shane. Possibly.
Yeah, I've used Adigy. Yeah, and NameCult probably. I used Adigy for a while. Yeah, Adigy as in like from strategy.
Yeah.
People always go, "What's Adigy?" Like, and that's why I didn't really stick to it. And I tried to use my real name, but there's the Tony Robbins of the Middle East, who's also named Arif Mirza. So it's like to use my real name. It's not when I try to avoid it. It's not because I want to avoid it. It's just because like if people try to find me, there's
right
in North America there are very few Arif Mirzas. But worldwide, it's like Mike Smith almost, So it's like, I can't get the domain. I can't get ironically, the guy who originally got Arif Mirza and who got it to the other guy eventually was in Ottawa, like literally like a 2-hour drive from where I am.
Man, like neighbors.
Yeah. It's like the only other Arif Mirza in Canada probably. And he got the domain before me in like early 2000 or 2001 or something like that. I think it was a while back, but yeah.
Wow. So then tell me this. So when did you have the light bulb moment to say, you know what? I think this buying and selling domain things might just work for me.
It was really in 2016 when I really started doing that, spending time just, absorbing information, listening to all the old podcasts. And, I had some decent .cos. I probably got a little too many. When I started in that wave, and within a couple months, I transitioned more into .coms. But I did sell some those .cos, not right away, but eventually I did. I sold quite a few. I sold quite a few .cos in the 4-figure range. And,
nice.
Yeah, and so basically at the beginning I was buying them at the auction, but then I would. So that's what kind of got me into the industry. I think a little bit more was exactly that. Slowly but surely, like okay, one of the ones that were like on my secondary list. Well, okay, nobody actually bid on that one. Now it's at closeout. So now I can get it without competing with somebody else, right? So it's like, oh, okay. And then it's like, and then stuff I didn't even get then, I'd be like, okay, well, when do these things drop, right? And then I'd go, oh, some of these I can actually get for like when there's a coupon, like at $1 or $2 or $7, whatever it was at the week. So I would be buying all kinds of .cos at that time for like $1, $2. And that's when I got that general knowledge of the different steps and all that stuff. That's when I think I sort of got into it a little bit more. And then after listening to more, I think of the podcast and inform myself more on some of the websites, I shifted a little bit more to .com. And I think today, I have actually I have my spreadsheet open here. I have about like 95% of my domains are .com, and I think I'm down to like a dozen .cos, including like like a wealthy.co and I think a couple of really good .cos, but like all the other ones are kind of like kind of kind of dissolved over the years, let them drop, or sold a couple in bulk, I think, the first year. But yeah.
Huh. Now, I don't want to run past something so quick that you just dropped in there. It's almost like, yeah, by the way. But it's you said spreadsheet. Like,
Yeah.
what are you keeping up with? Like, because you have listeners that are out there that think that, oh, I just go out and I buy domains and that's just what we do. And
yeah, it's the thing is a lot of people know me just from hosting the social, but like last NamesCon, actually, I did the social at the end, but I also did a session on portfolio math and how important that is. I did a couple of private not like sessions with the people from the social, but not one that was on a different day, and some sessions of just, I have a spreadsheet that kind of shows people, projects their portfolio, like how going for, if you buy X number of domains per week and you're buying them at a certain price point and you're selling a certain rate at a certain certain multiple, what's your long-term projections, right? I think that's probably one of the biggest issues of newcomers coming into this industry, is they see, so and so bought this domain for $20 and sold it for $20,000, and they don't understand the context of, okay, that might be a little bit of exaggeration. Basically, say $20 and let's say $3,000. All right, and they go, oh wow, that's like 150x, and that truly is my bread and butter, right? That's what I used to do. Is I used to buy stuff oftentimes at closeout, and most of my sales are mid 4-figure sales. Right. And but what they don't see is the equally important factor of what is your actual sell-through rate. What's your average annual holding cost per domain, and what's your sell-through rate, and those two things you have to multiply together. So if your sell-through rate is 1%, well then that number that you sold 150x isn't so glorious. It's really it's still good, but there's also those 99 other domains that I have to pay renewals for. But if you get the right domains and you know what you're doing and you have a 1% sell-through rate, you could still do very well in this business. It's just that you have to be stingy. You have to be stingy when you're buying, and you have to be, you have to be decent at negotiating, and you have to be the best. And I don't outbound. So, what I know, I've had a customer service career working in a casino. It's
high stakes roller.
You can't get much more customer services, right? It's like it's like working in a store, except for they pay money and they leave with nothing, right? It's like so it's customer service is the most important thing. So I think that kind of gave me a little bit of an advantage in reading people in negotiations. And I did have some sales experience much younger before that. I did the DJ thing for a while, and it was transformed into managing some clubs. So, I've been forward facing in terms of facing people most of my life. So I guess that helps a bit with my negotiations, but still like no outbound. So it's important for me to not just for me, I think speaking in general for everybody here, for people to learn, is that it's important to know, the domains you're acquiring, what type of domain are they, right? Like what do you expect to sell that? What multiple do you expect to sell that at? And equally important, what are the chances of that selling every year? And it's like, if you're buying domains because you're going to think you're going to sell them, all of them every year, then you haven't learned enough in this industry yet. You need to just take a step back, stop buying, and really listen to some of the podcasts. Listen to your show, listen to your podcast, go listen to old domain Sherpas, come on the socials, ask questions, join the forums, ask questions, learn from other people's mistakes, because there's a lot of domain investors who's made a lot of mistakes over the years, and I think all of us have, and it's just the quicker you learn, the less money you'll burn before turning a profit. But yeah,
the quicker you learn, the less you burn. There it is. That's the moniker.
So the most important thing is you when you're looking at domains, like, well, what's the multiple I can sell this at over my my average cost is going to be for me, and then at that price point, what's the realistic chance of selling? And unfortunately, like on an individual domain, that question, ironically, you can't answer. There is no answer for any particular domain. There's so many variables involved, but once you start growing your portfolio to a certain size, you go, okay, this is I have 100 of these types of domains. it'll be more or less this on average, and that's when having a larger portfolio really helps you learn about your own portfolio. If you only have 100 domains and you don't make a sale for a year, you might still have a very good portfolio.
Right.
It's just you don't have enough to know. Or you might have a horrible portfolio. It's just you don't have enough data points to really to know where you're at. And so I'm not telling people to go out there and buy 3,000 domains, but go slow, ask for advice. There's so many people in the industry who are so generous with their time. If you can afford it, go take a DN Academy with Michael Sager. And if you can't, go listen to his old Sherpas. And then when Tess took over and JT now and Drew and there's so much information out there, and everybody has made mistakes. Even Drew, one of the greatest interviews I heard was him saying how he went through $300,000 in domains. It's like it's before he really got his legs in gear, and now he's like probably the number one in the world, right? So there's others who I look up to highly as well. I want to pull up names because it'll be a very long list, but it's just that one story really struck me. But the problem is that most people don't have 300K to burn through before they need to turn a profit, right?
Right.
So that's the serious thing. So know your stuff, know your numbers is what it comes down to.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I think about just for new investors is not really looking at you can look at the cost behind it in terms of your initial cost, but the reality for a lot of people are, I tell people, I'm like, you have to really look at a domain and go, am I willing to invest at least 3 to 5 years into this? If it comes to that, to get this 4-figure sell, and then multiply that times 100. Because that's what you're really looking at in terms of, it's easy to look at one domain and say that and go, yeah, I'm willing to do this 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
But no, let's multiply that.
It's even more than that. I mean, it's you can break it down to just to nerd it out a bit. Or the way I look at it, it's like domain years, right? It's like it's like space time. It's like the two things that belong together. It's domain years. So every year, if you have a portfolio of 3,000, well, that's 3,000 domain years.
Right.
And so it's like, once you have 3,000 domains like I do, well, then it's the projection going forward isn't as relevant because you have the statistical probability within your own portfolio. And even at 3,000, it is cutting a little bit short, right? I mean, I have really good months and I have really bad months. Like this past month for me has been really, really, really good, but before that I had a period of 6 weeks where I didn't make a sale. And that's what happens. But as you grow your portfolio, that variation stabilizes. There are people with 10,000 domains who they know they'll sell between 5 and 7 domains a month, or depending on the quality of their domains. It's always going to be dependent on the quality of their domains. But it gets pretty stable as you get more and more domains. But when you have 100 domains, then you have to look forward, and I would say even more than 3 to 5 years.
Right.
Because if your sell-through rate is 1%, then you got to look ahead 100 years, right?
Right.
Because your chances of selling it is 1 in 100 every year. So how long is the estimated time before you sell it on average? It's 100 years. So and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But you have to know that.
Right.
It's funny to say that. It's like there's nothing wrong with selling a specific domain once every 100 years. 1% sell-through rate in this business, if you know what you're doing, you could do quite well, especially if you're doing it part-time. Like I've been most of the time, that's fantastic, but there's not a lot of people who actually get to do that. So
totally. And the sad thing there is you just kind of see money go down the drain because eventually it's like, well, those renewals, they catch up.
Yeah, they do.
They just do. I don't care who you are, whether you're the most seasoned person, whether you're the newest person, they catch up. So you better have a strategy. So I guess now in terms of your spreadsheet, what type of, key business indicators are you tracking?
Here's the thing is that my spreadsheet really doesn't get, you could go down so many rabbit holes and have such a complex spreadsheet. When I'm buying domains, I kind of go by gut. Especially when I was I've temporarily stopped NameCult, but it's been temporary for almost a year now. So I don't know if I'll ever get back to it. But when I was doing that, it was great because I would go through Well, basically GoDaddy expiration auctions, every day there's about on average 50,000 domains that go to auction. So that was my thing, is I would go through the list every night. And yeah, I didn't go through 50,000 domains but you don't need to go through like 20 character infos and stuff like that, right? So ultimately I probably went through high 4-figure number of domains every night, or sometimes in the day before, or whatever it was. But like,
wow,
over a while after, and it's like, okay, I go through lists the first time, and filter out the ones that, okay, this could be interesting. Like, might be, might not be good, whatever it is. I just, filter out anything that's like even a faintest chance of being okay. And then from that list, there's usually like high hundreds. So you've already filtered it down from 50,000 down to, maybe 10,000 of stuff you actually look at, down to 700-800 domains that are like, okay, maybe it's something, maybe not. And then, but from there, then you go through it again. And that's when you use the domain investors' number one tool in the world, Google. Right? You go and you figure out, okay, do these names relate to an industry where there's a need for domains, where there's potential buyers, where there's buyers who are prepared to pay the price point, the multiple that I need in order to pay for that domains in that portfolio that don't sell, right? So that's what's really important, to really ask those questions, because at the end of the day, there's tons of great domains out there that are simply not good investments, right? And so, yeah, in terms of what industries I went to, I've never really stuck to anything. It was always, and that's one of the great things about domains, is you could wander a bit. I'm a more of a generalist, right? There's so many things in this world that interest me. I've been lucky. Like, most of my life, I listen to the news, 3-4 times a week. I'll watch documentaries every, probably a couple times a week as well. If I see something online, I was like, that seems like a cool science thing or whatever it is. Like, that's always caught my interest. So, at a certain point, if you've been doing that your whole life, I think if you have a general knowledge, good understanding, general knowledge around the world of different businesses and industries and everything there is, I think you do have a foot up in the domain industry, because you can recognize the value in domains in a wide variety of industries. So I never really focus on any one thing, and I'm thankful for that. It's just it's fun to have stuff that helps you learn new things. I've had domains that I looked on Google, like, I had no idea what it was about. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, oh, there's money in that thing. It's like that's the question you ask is there money in the business that this domain is targeted to? And if the answer is yes, then there's a lot more questions you have to ask, right? You also have to ask, like, is there a number of people who would want this domain, or a number of companies who want this domain? Like, I mean, if it's just one, it's tough, right? But sometimes if it's one, if it's the right one, it could be worth it. It's all about the number crunching, right? It's like, if you have a few number of businesses in the industry, but they're going to pay a lot of money for the domain, then it's good. Conversely, if you have a large number of people looking for that type of domain, but the price point isn't as high, well, that could be good too. The volume's high enough. But you don't want domains that are like low money and low interest. That's what you want to avoid. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's probably the number one recommendation I would tell people when they come in the industry is be careful with those. Oh, that's a cool domain, because those domains, that's a cool one. That trigger your imagination, because that's one great thing about this industry, is that it's great to have a great imagination, but it can hurt you too. In that, if you think that could be a cool domain for, I have a great idea for this domain, but the problem is that you need multiple, numerous amount of people to have that same idea, and to attach that idea to that domain, and then to need to pay 100x or whatever multiple it is you need to make your entire portfolio profitable, because you got to pay for those other 99 domains or 98 domains or 50 domains, whatever it is that you're not going to sell. So that those two things often get disconnected in new domainers. They just see, it's a cool domain, somebody can do this with it, and they don't realize that, but the question you really need to ask is there somebody today, or actually are there people today who are willing to pay a certain multiple? And that's just easy to lose track of when you're excited about a cool domain. I mean, and I know it's happened to me. It's happened to me many times. But thankfully, over the last few years, I've learned to go through my list of potential purchases multiple times and ask myself, is somebody really going to buy that? Okay, yes. Then, I go through the list again. Somebody really, really going to buy that? And then the third time is like, well, maybe not. And when even if it's a maybe not, then it's not a purchase. It's not a good investment, because you need more than just good domains to be profitable in this business, right? It's like good domains are good domains, but are not necessarily good investments.
Yeah, certainly. Now, you mentioned NameCult. Like, what's the story behind that? What made you start NameCult.com?
So NameCult is when I first got on in the industry in '96, I joined NamePros. And I saw some people sharing stuff there as well. And I was at the point where I was going through quite deeply into the GoDaddy list. And I go, there's a bunch of these names here that I know I'm not going to buy. So I've already made the list, might as well share it. And that went on for about a year. After a year, I had, I didn't even have affiliate links on it for the first year. I was just sharing for the sake of sharing because it was fun. I was trying to learn. I was meeting new people. And but then I reached out to GoDaddy for their affiliate program. They actually said no twice before they accepted me because, the regular program is okay, but to do the list and stuff like that, they are very stingy. But anyways, long story short is that I also, around the same time, I got to the point where my list was not just sharing 20, 30 domains, and then it was like 100 domains, 200 domains a day. It got to the point where I was sharing multiple hundreds of domains because there's both auctions and closeouts. And my list didn't fit into a post at NamePros. So I split them up into multiple posts, but it got kind of awkward, whatever. And then I just go, well, I'll just start a website, right, on the side. I put the list on NamePros still, but then in my inventory, I have like too many domainer domains. I just went through a list. I go, what's one that's kind of cool, short, sharp, that I probably won't sell at some point because it's like, and NameCult just came to the top of the list because I wouldn't use NameCult as a end user facing sort of brand, because like cult is maybe not. I mean, I think most people just take it for, it's like, okay, you're an enthusiast, right? But
right.
There is some people who take it the other way, but it's like, okay, it's the perfect name for that. And then so after that for 2 years, I was every day I was sharing a list of domains going to auction that day, and also the closeouts that day. So it was like I probably shared about 1 million domains over the course of that time there. And so that probably helped me learn a lot too in this industry, is doing that filtration over and over again, pulling down domains. But yeah, so it's NameCult is still there. You can go look at the old lists, but it's all auctions from I think my last list was September of last year. I'm not 100% sure, but might have been October. But
yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Were you still doing it, or is there still a desire to do it? Or do you have time to do it?
I put it on pause. That's the whole thing. Is that people ask me? I get people who got my list before asking me all the time. They go, "Are you putting your list back? Putting your list back?" There was GoDaddy's platform. Let's just say that it's not always the most friendliest, smoothest platform in the world. I lost a lot of commissions because of various things, either bugs or their policies or whatever it was. It got to the point where I was like, yeah, okay, I could do this for fun still. I was making decent money, but it wasn't enough to live off of. And it was just got to the point where like, okay, don't I meant to take a break. So officially I'm on break. But how long that break is going to be might be another week, might be another month. I as you said, there's a lot of things going on in my life, and my quote unquote real world job, which, after I go back to it, I probably will not be there for that much longer. I kind of want to make the shift into domains full time, either full time, like as a domainer, or full time as a domainer plus something in the industry. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, right? That's what my mom said, like, 2 years before she retired. She goes, I still got to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. I'm like, okay. That's a great thing to do. So yeah, casino's reopening soon. I'll be going back. But at some point I was always planning on taking a sabbatical actually by the end of this year. But then COVID came and kind of threw a monkey wrench into things. And so NameCult, maybe. Maybe I'll be back. I did enjoy it, and I have stopped buying domains at that sort of volume. And so I do want to get back into it because I'm doing quite well. And I'm at the point now where either I got to sell a bunch of domains and work on other things on the side,
right,
or scale up even further, right? And really, and both options are kind of cool.
Not it.
So yeah, so it's like, we'll see what happens.
I'm weighing my options. I'm weighing my options, keeping things open.
Yeah, and the socials really like got me, open to things online and YouTube stuff and all these things that like, I don't know, it kind of interests me, and I've spent the last year learning it all, right? So it's like now, do I just go back and do my regular job and just do domaining part time, or do I go take it to the next level and find something more exciting for me, and while at the same time growing my domain business on the side? And I think I'm leaning towards that option.
So let me ask you this then. Have you found the consistency then that is desired that, I guess leads you to say, yeah, this is something that I can do full time?
So yeah, here's the thing is that I think is that once I hit like 2,000, 3,000 domains, there was more consistency, but there's still, like I'm at the point now where I'm comfortable about my annual sales, right? Like I know I can project I'll sell between this and that. The month to month or week to week, it's still, even at 3,000 domains, it's up and down. Admittedly, as most people know, I'm probably not as organized as I should be. I'm probably really underselling my portfolio. I probably got another 50% worth of sales to even 100%. If I priced everything, listed everywhere. That's my big dilemma is, do I price everything? Don't I? I've been doing well with most of my domains not priced, and I'm selling domains through incoming negotiations for more than I would, put them as a buy it now. But the question is that how many sales am I losing because those domains aren't at buy it now, right?
Right.
It's really about that balance, and that's why people say you got to price your stuff and it's not. I'm like, I know I do, but it's also why I'm not too worried about it, and because I've like this week, 2 weeks ago, I was juggling 3 sales, 5K and above, right? And one's closed, one is about to close, and the other one's still pending. The one that's still pending is the highest one, obviously, but if I had priced those at buy it now, I'm not sure I would have priced them at 5K. I might have priced them at 3K or something like that. I'm not sure, but that's the thing with pricing domains is like it's not too difficult to price other people's domains, but if it's in your portfolio, they're your babies. And look, the number one rule of all the things I've said so far, the number one rule in domains is do not fall in love with your domains. But
why not?
Don't fall in love with your dog. Like, it's the same thing, right? Like, I love my dog. It's like, he's my little baby, and like my portfolio, the little domains running around my spreadsheet, they're my babies too, But but it's good. It's fun when they go to a good home, though. It's fun when you get a good discussion going. That's one other thing I enjoy about actually having incoming negotiations is that sometimes they're dry and to the point, but sometimes they're really fun discussions, and you really help somebody get the domain they needed to start something really cool. Whether they end up building it up or not, who knows? But
right. So you do no outbound, none whatsoever.
None whatsoever. I think I sent one email once to for a reason that something triggered me, that like somebody was looking for something. I'm not even sure if I ever sent that email. So yeah, otherwise I don't think so.
So we're in the same boat then. So what's interesting to me is just hearing you talk about, negotiating or listing the buy now. For me, the confusion comes into, it's not a problem to list domain names to sell. No problem there. But to me, it seems like the thing that comes back to bite everybody is time.
Yeah.
That passes from the time you actually list it.
Yep.
And remember to go back to update it.
Yep.
If you remember to do that. And so it's, oftentimes, and I've seen it and you've seen it as well on Twitter or some of the forums, that somebody listed something, let's just say back in 2017 for $1,500, that in 2021, they would sell that thing for $5,000, $6,000. easy, but they didn't know about it until they got the Afternic email or whatever email that says, "Hey,
Congratulations,
congratulations,
yeah, I
you
love those
sold,"
emails.
and
It's
you're
like,
like,
yeah,
"Yes,
it's not even that sold. It's that the first email you get from Afternic is that one saying that they've actually, like, they've got the funds. It's like it's like sold and paid for. Yeah. Now all you need to do is just make sure the domain gets to them. But
right,
it's like those emails are like great because it's like, okay, I don't even have to negotiate. It's like, oh, it's almost too easy.
right."
And but that's one thing in this industry. It's important to know the different corners of them, right? As you said, like what you just told me now, ironically, this very week, just a few days ago, not even in those 3 ones I was talking about. I don't know, 5,000 price point is a little bit of magic lately, but I had an email from an Afternic broker about one of my domains. I didn't even remember pricing it because all the prices at Afternic are quite old, and I really got to review them. And a lot of them are just make off or whatever it is when I have stuff at other places. But long story short is I got this email from a broker. And he asked me about a domain, and there was an offer already on the table. It was like 4,300. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a good offer for that domain. If I would price it by it now, might have been around there. But my gut instinct is, first of all, to always you don't really ever accept the first offer. There is one exception, which is why I want to talk about this one. But then I realized, I looked around at my spreadsheet and I go, oh wait, so the offer was 4,300, but I had it priced at Afternic at 5K way back when. So I'm like, and this is the thing, is that oftentimes when I'm negotiating, I tend to be more firm than not. I will give something, but it's not like I don't meet people in the middle usually. It's usually like, okay, I'll absorb the, whatever $200 fee or what, something like that. If on a 5,000 thing, like I'll knock off $200 or what, just to show good faith. But if somebody's offering $1,000 and I have it at 5K, unless I really think I want to sell this at 3K, I won't sell it at 3K. Usually I'll stand firm. But but in this case, I automatically, the first thing you ask Afternic broker, if they're contacting you, in my mind, is, where is this offer coming from? Is it through GoDaddy or Afternic, or is it through one of your partner registrars? And that's the one thing when you're dealing with Afternic. Here's a little tip I'll share with everybody, is that if you're dealing with a partnership registrar, what it means is that there's a potential customer who went to another registrar that's not GoDaddy, who submitted a purchase request, and that registrar contacted Afternic, who then contacted you. So, like, how much time has already gone through there, right? We all know, in a certain percentage of transactions or of negotiations, time will kill a deal, right? And there's certain times when that doesn't hold up. It's not 100% true all the time, but there are certain instances where that is the case. And in this specific case, where you don't know who that person was he, asking about the domain on the spur of a moment idea that he's going to drop in 2 days, and it's going to, jump out of his head as soon as it got in it, or it could be otherwise. It could be somebody who really seriously wants it, but you don't know. And then so if you're dealing with Afternic, and if you're within, for me, even if you're in 25% of my asking price, and it's through a partner registrar, I oftentimes just go for it. I just say yes, because the amount of time it takes for me to say yes to the broker, that broker to get back to the other registrar, back to the customer, and that customer to do the transaction, for 25%, I think it's worth the risk reward. But that's the thing you got to know, because if the inquiry had come directly through GoDaddy or through Afternic, I might have said no. My price is 5K. Now at 43, it was close enough either way that I probably would have said yes. But if it was maybe 3,500, well, then I might have said no in one situation and yes in the other, because knowing that by the time it gets back to the buyer and it's another registrar, like, he's already moved on to his next domain. Right? So, yeah.
So I've had that happen to where a GoDaddy broker will contact me, and let's say I have like a Dan Lander up, and depending on what they come in at, a lot of times, it may be a domain that I look at and I go, you know what? Hey, I'm like, and I know that they can go and look at this domain. It's like, just type it in. It's going to go to a Dan Lander, and you're going to see a price that's there. And so a lot of times, it's a matter of, it's almost like a cat and mouse game, that if I list a domain, let's say 4,000, and I'm like, it's there for 4,000. And they're come in and they're like, hey, 2880. It's like, nope. And a lot of times I put it at 5,000, and then like I start setting reminders like 14 day, 21 day, 30 day, and put different prices on the calendar to go back to update.
That's a cool
Um,
strategy. Yeah.
and oftentimes I get the higher price, and I don't know if that's because they're seeing
They're scared it was going to go even higher.
yeah, well, they're seeing it go all over the place, and so it's like, well, I don't know where this thing is going to end, but I landed on it today, landed on it right now. This is what's going to happen. Buy it now. So I've seen that happen. Or there have been times that I've just been like, all right, 5,000, and they say 4,000. I'm like, I'll change it to 4,500, and I've woken up the next morning and it's gone.
Yeah. I
And
do that sometimes too.
and so I do things like that help tend to move the sell if the negotiation stalls. But yeah, it's like, man, you just have to have these different pricing strategies, and to a certain extent, sometimes just be willing to walk and just say, I'm just not willing to part ways.
And sometimes that's a smart decision. Like, I mean, when you're negotiating all your sales or most of your sales, you have to ask yourself, like, okay, somebody offered me $2,000 for this domain, and like, okay, it's a $2,000 offer. It's a great amount, right? But how many times are you gonna, by saying no this, how many times will you get a sale at $7,000, right?
Right.
And if the question is less than 3 or less, well, then you say no, because you'll be making more. But if it's like more than four or more times, well, then you're losing money, right? Because you would have made $8,000 with 4 different domains of that quality. It's all about theory, right? And I never really talk about a single domain. It's more like, I have a certain number of domains in this category, and if I say no at 2K, X number of times, and hold out for 7, how many times do those no's turn into, oh yeah, okay, I'll still go higher? And it happens. But that's why it's really important to know your portfolio, because there are cases where your domain might not ever get anything more than $2,000 offer, right? So it's really important to get a pulse on your portfolio, on your domains, and to know what category, what bucket of your portfolio does it fall into. Is it really the type that you can say no to at $2,000 and expect to have another offer come in your lifetime? It's sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is no. That's it's like, people often ask for advice in certain things, and it's like, no, it's not always clear cut. Every domain is a little bit different, and I like to look at them in a bucket together. But at the end of the day, each domain is its own little unique little piece of magic, right? So it's you got to know which ones to say yes to, which ones to say no to.
Right. And speaking of category, like, what types of domains or what categories of domains do you invest in?
I would say the bread and butter, the bulk of my portfolio is probably like, solid 2-word.coms, like adjective business, adjective something. What I would categorize as a brandable, but not a made up brandable. I do have some made up brandables, mostly, mostly 5 characters and stuff like that. Some made up words where the root word is a real word in a good strong business. I 95% of my portfolio is .coms. I have a lot of phrase domains. I have probably a few hundred phrase domains, which I love, because there's a little recent wave of sales, and even bigger wave of inquiries that like hopefully will turn into sales eventually, that I've been getting. A lot of it have been these little 3-word, even 4-word phrases. And those are fun, because I think as these 1-word.coms get more and more saturated, then it's like, where's the next step? And everyone says, well, 2-word.coms, and it's like, it's not that easy. It's because the 1-words, it's like, it's not even about the words. It's about, on a scale of 1 to a million, or 1 to whatever number it is, how memorable is this domain? Right? Like, there's some 1-word.coms that aren't memorable at all. Like, I've going through lists way back when I was doing them. Every day there'd be at least one English word that I would not even touch. I wouldn't even put it on my list, because it was too obscure or too like whatever it is. So just because it's 1 word doesn't mean anything. But like phrases, do seep into people's memories, I think a lot more than
Right.
a lot of even 2word.coms or even an obscure 1word.com, right? So, but it doesn't mean that you take any 3-word phrase and think they're gold. No, you have to have things that are either known or just could be used for a slogan, or just things that are catchy or funny. It's like, there's so many possibilities, but at the same time, there's many more possible ways of getting it wrong. But yeah, I'm seeing an increase in these types of domains, and they're fun to work with too, because especially the ones that are kind of a fun play on words. The person making the inquiry is going to be a fun person to negotiate with, right? So it's like it's that's the thing. Oftentimes, like, I have some negotiations that are just so dry, and I'm just so like analytical and whatever it is, I'm just not even analytical. I'd say I'm just more like just to the point and dry. And there are other ones where it's like I'm getting to huge conversations, and like at the end, I'm like, I don't even care if the domain sells or not, And those are usually the highest sell-through rates, right? It's those ones where you engage in the person, you get to that level where it's like, okay, you're trying to make things work, and then you have the I'll do the air quotes here, the student, right, working on his project, and those ones I love too, because like if I know somebody's playing games with me, I'm pretty good at playing games, and I use that, and I have so much fun with those too. So it's fun to have those negotiations to deal with, but they're all different. Everyone is a little bit different, and you have to know you have to know which ones are which, right? That's why I think I'm lucky in having dealt with people most of my life, and it probably gives me a little bit of advantage in reading people. I mean, I never really realized it until now, because before it's like, well, it didn't really change anything, right? If I wasn't selling my own stuff, I did some sales before, like when I was really young, and then at the casino, obviously, it's like I'm facing people, but it's not my money, right? And if anything, working in a casino, it's not even about making money. In a casino, if you're at a table, it's you're not there to make money. You're there to make sure the game's applied by the rules, right? You're there to make sure the game remains integrous, there's integrity or whatever it is, right? And besides that, there are winners and there are losers, right? And in a casino, it's like at the end of the day, the games are all made so that the house wins, right? It's not magic. It's not like because they're luckier. No, the games are designed to have a little bit of an edge, and that with volume, it ends up being a whack ton of money, but like it never really affected me because it wasn't my stuff, right? Now it's my domain, so I'm more aware of the negotiation side of it, and you have to adapt to who your potential customer is and try to use their language, their tone, and there's people that I joke around with, and there's others who I wouldn't even start joking around with. It's just, you have to be able to read that, and it's not easy sometimes, right? Through email, through text, it's like it's tone of voice isn't there. You don't know if the guy's joking or not, right? When you're writing stuff, that's probably another advantage I have. Going back when I had my old music website, the DJ club music website, is that it was a community from around the world with like 30,000, even more than 30,000 members, right? Not obviously not all active, but it was still a very large, very, very large community. You learn very quickly at that point in time how to communicate in ways where there are as few misunderstandings as possible.
That's good.
For a lot of people around the world, English isn't necessarily their first language.
Right.
So, and that's why for me, like, on the socials, I ask people not to swear and just to watch your language and all that stuff. It's not because swearing bothers me much. Like if I go to a bar with some friends and one of them swears, it doesn't bother me at all, right? But when I'm trying to set the tone for how we represent ourselves as an industry,
right,
that's very different, especially in our industry. As I said before, it's like where we've already got a bad reputation in some people's eyes, that we're trying to fight for the respect. And if we set a good tone of good, clear communication, with minimizing misunderstandings, I think that alone, it does go a long way. People often overlook that fact, but as somebody who had a community of 30,000 people, I've seen the difference of what a smiley face at the end of a sentence can do, right? It's like how sometimes some people might think somebody's being sarcastic versus just trying to be funny, right? And be snarky, or just be trying to have fun. And it's like, I've seen situations where I read something that, oh, these guys are going to have fun together because they're joking around so well, and then it was not at all that, because one person took it personally and like didn't understand it was sarcasm, and it got blown out of proportion. Now, obviously in the domain industry, there's a lot more English than otherwise, so it's like, there's a lot we can still get away with, but it's just, I try to keep things, as I don't know, clear as possible, as I would say. Unfortunately, that doesn't always equal to be concise as possible, but I try.
Well, that was going to be the question was, based upon your casino experience and being able to read people, obviously you're reading body language, you're reading many things at once with multiple people, not just one person.
Oh, yeah.
And so you have a lot that's going on. And that was going to be the thing of how do you think that that's given you the edge over any other domainer in terms of your ability to negotiate and reach a sell, because for most people that don't have experience, I mean, that's not their thing. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, I got excited. I got an inquiry. Where for you, that's probably, it's like, okay, yeah, we got an inquiry, but now how do we start to understand where we're at and what level of field or play that we're playing on?
That's a great question. I mean, like, until earlier on when you were asking me this, it's like I didn't really think about how my past really affects my current negotiations. I mean, maybe a little bit, but I mean, it's a good question, because look, I've had I won't say how long I've been doing it, but I mean, I've been in the casino for many, many years, since like the 90s, as I said, late 90s or whatever it is, and so I've been dealing pretty much every game there is with such a wide variety of people. Combine that with the few years I had with my online community, which is a totally different ball game, but also really critical in forming, good, clear communication skills. That it's, it definitely does give me a leg up. How exactly? I mean, I don't know. As I said before, like, I think it's critical to be able to read and adapt to a person that you're negotiating with, and just kind of sometimes just join them in whatever they are at their level, and sometimes, well, it might not be appropriate, because if you're negotiating and you want a certain outcome, some types of people it's okay to do certain things with, other types of people it's not. But I mean, yes, obviously, like, if I'm dealing at a craps table, it's the same thing. I have customers who come to have fun, and they don't care, they lose, I won't say numbers, but stupid amounts of money, let's put it that way, large amounts of money, and win or lose,
getting into the land of mortgages.
They don't care, and they're like, and they don't care, and like, if you tell them they're an idiot for doing that, they laugh, and that's what they're there for, right? But you, especially if you're in a casino doing that kinds of money, you have to be sure that if you're calling that guy an idiot, he knows you're joking around with him, right? But that's the thing, is that a lot of my colleagues would be afraid to do that, right? But I'm able to read a person enough that it's like, yeah, I know this guy's here to have fun, and it's like, he do the same thing if his friends were there, right? And that's what you got to realize, like, why is he there, and what sort of experience does he want? And that, I guess it does translate into domain negotiations, right? Yeah. I never really thought of it that way, but yeah, good observation. Because
it's because you're dealing with somebody on the end, and you've got to figure out, how serious are they? Are they really down to their last dime, to their last $100, or is this just a ploy that, hey, they're sitting on, a round of funding, but they're just kind of toying away here at the $2,500 range, and knowing that they could go all the way up to 30,000.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know that, and it's a matter of, it takes skill. It's not just luck. It takes skill to walk someone from that initial $1,500 offer, $2,500 offer, into the land of high 5-figure sales.
Yeah. And like, sometimes that information is just not there. But that's, like, I mean, I'd say it's your job, but it's not, obviously you're working for yourself as a domain investor, but I mean, it's your job to yourself to get as much information about the potential buyer as possible.
And do you research a lot of,
every offer I get in, I'll throw them through like Domain IQ, and I'll through, again, the domain investor's number one tool, through Google. You check LinkedIn a little bit. I kind of avoid LinkedIn a bit, because I don't want them to know that I'm checking them out. I gotta create a second LinkedIn account with a sort of fake thing, but I mean, it's I'll the rabbit hole I go through when I'm trying to find information for a potential buyer is usually pretty deep. It's usually pretty deep. I'm going, I check the who is, if they have if I go through domain IQ and I find, that they have other domains, I'll check the who is of the domains to see, is there another email that I'm missing? And it's like, I'll do bounce around quite deep. And, if it's straight up, then it's a lot easier. And usually if they're straight up with their name and who they are, I generally trying to make things easier. I'm pretty honest, pretty straightforward. I don't play, overprice my thing knowing to negotiate down. Usually those types of people, they're business, right? Either they're going to buy it or they're not going to buy it. They have a certain price and that's about what it is. But there's other people who play games that you got to play games too, right? So
now have you ever had a moment to where you're like, this person, they're just probably tire kicking, but it actually turned into a good sizable sale?
That's a good question. Well, where I thought, yes. Yeah, because here I am talking about all my experience in the past, making me, decent at negotiations. Like I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert negotiator, and I'm not an expert salesperson. And so yeah, I do get surprised sometimes. It's like, but more often than not, I think I'm pretty good at figuring out the pulse. But yeah, there are exceptions where it's like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting this. Because I mean, nobody should do this. But I'm sure, as as a domainer, it's like you get an incoming offer. More often than not, you get that vibe, right? You get that vibe where it's like, yeah, this guy's it's a tire kicker, and I have no idea why. Because sometimes it comes through a form where it's like the offer is $200, right? And you have no idea whether they just put $200, not because they think the domain's worth $200, but because it's like, well, I want to contact you and negotiate with you directly, so I'm just putting in a random number, right? And then us on our side, some domainers could take that personally. Right? It's like, well, he's only offering $200. And it's like, well, again, this is a question of where clarity and communication is important, because maybe he typed in $200 or she typed in $200 because they just put in a number because they thought that would take the next step of contacting you directly, right? Which is what they really wanted. And then they might be prepared to pay 10K or however much. There's people who have stories where they can go even higher, right? So end of the line, it's give every incoming offer a chance, and you never know. I've had sales in the where it's I didn't think they would come out. I'll admit to that. It's happened.
Well, switching up gears here. So one of the things that I've just kind of picked up on along the way, along this journey, and just getting to chat with you. So you are really based around community. I can definitely tell you just have a heart for creating communities, whether it was from the DJ website, just in terms of NameCult, but you also have some other dealings in terms of the domain social as well as the domain show. So, I mean, talk a little bit about both of those. Like, how did you, I guess, stumble into doing this whole domain social? And for those that don't know, what is it? What is the domain social?
Well, domain social is basically every Friday since, I was gonna ask if you know who Mike Seiger is, but if you're in the domain industry and you don't know who Mike Seiger is, you're in the wrong industry.
Just quit.
But just stop now. But he started in March of 2020, like right at the cusp where everything was shutting down. What he called the quarantine social, where he invited some friends, and it ended up being Fridays, and it grew every few weeks. It grew and grew, and then in July, as things were actually end of June, when things were starting to open back up, he announced the last show of June that would be the last one. And he was taking a break, and he was like, the way he phrased it, we wasn't too sure whether it was a break or stopping, or he said, at one point he said break, but then he said stopping, whatever it is. And he says, well, if anybody wants to take over, you get in touch. And a few of us did. And it ended up, that's when I registered the domain social.com. And then I just ran with it there. And it's fun. It's a weekly meeting on Zoom where we've been anywhere between like 40 and like 80 people. Sometimes even actually the one after the NamesCon, we ended up 120 people or something like that. Wow. So I think that was the first NamesCon, I think it is. maybe it was the second one. I don't know. But we've had, varying number of people, and it's what's fun is that it doesn't really matter how many people are there, because if it's a smaller number, then it's more intimate and we have a lot of fun. And it's a larger number, then we have a lot more data to feed off of and information to feed off of, and it works either way. And so so now it's been exactly a year. I think on the 3rd was the first one I did. 3rd of July 2020 was the first one that was after Mike's, and it's been great. It's been 1 year where I think I've learned a lot about this industry. I've shared a lot, and I've completely aside, much more important, I made a lot of really fun, interesting, cool friends, who like when I meet in person, I'm going to give them a big hug, because I've probably spent more time with them over the last year than any of my real world friends. It's like it's those social. We start at 3:00 Eastern, and sometimes we end at 9. Sometimes we end at 10. Sometimes we end at 11, and we've sometimes ended well after midnight. And there's a couple of guys from Europe in there. Again, I won't name names because there's too many cool people there. But who were there like at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning in Europe. In Turkey or Estonia or whatever it is. It's like it's really cool. So it's I'm really grateful to this industry for like the actual business, but also just for meeting all the cool people and cool friends that I'm looking forward to meeting in person someday, sooner than later. So yeah, that's the socials. And with me going back to work imminently, I don't know when, it's still day by day almost. I'm not too sure what the status of that's going to be. I might, my schedule at the casino used to be, I'd work in a 2-week schedule. I'd be off every second Friday. So nice. I'm not too sure how I would work that in. Maybe get special guest host every now and then. There's something different. Maybe a certain Alvin Brown might pick a week or whatever it is. I don't know. We'll see. We'll talk about it at some point.
Who knows?
Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen at some point. Or I'll just figure it out, a rotation of different days. But I like sticking to one day. Might not even be Friday, right? Because now that COVID is over,
right?
Or sorry, I should not say that. COVID is not. It's far from being over. But I mean, over in terms of the day-to-day lives of people in North America. People going back to work, right?
Right. Yeah. So, like the complete shutdown of everything and everyone.
Yeah. So the Fridays, whereas before people were like, they might still be working from home, but like they'd be finished work and be at home, right? There's no transportation. There's no going for groceries. It's like Friday was really convenient for last year. Maybe that might change. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. That's the socials. The main show that you mentioned, that was basically a Page Howe's conference that he asked me to produce last year. And as we mentioned before, before recording, that was really a lot of fun. He asked me to produce that shortly before the show. And oh geez, here I'm losing my voice. I'm talking too much. But and then I've lost some water.
Here it is. Yeah, this guy hosts a domain social that goes on 8-9 hours, and he can't even talk to me for an hour.
Well, at least there were like 40, 50 people sometimes, right? Here, so you got me spilling all the beans of all my other stuff.
Goodness.
Paige last year, he asked me to produce that, and that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about that, and Paige is probably the most interesting and eccentric people in this industry. He's had his hands on so many different corners and so many different things, and it was a lot of fun doing that with him. So whether there'll be another domain show, I would be inclined to say yes. When exactly? You gotta talk to Paige about that one. that'll be his decision. I'm definitely, if I get enough notice and if I'm back at work and I'll book time off and I'll do that with him for sure. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was that was the first online domain virtual conference or whatever you want to call it. That was like right a couple months before I think that first NamesCon came, and it was fun. It was crazy. There was fires everywhere because it was like all these new social platforms and online conferences stuff. And like they've already been around for years, but not really. Like the COVID, not the COVID level. Like when COVID came, Zoom exploded, everything exploded. But last year when we did this, there was all these platforms that were just starting. So there'd be like half the features were there. The the information and the help was like non-existent. And it's just like, sometimes it's just, you had to turn one thing off in one page and everything would work. But you wouldn't be able to take you 5 hours to figure it out because there'd be no help. And it was just trial and error. But it was great. So that's the conference. So we'll see what happens with that. I do have some plans of my own to do, like I did the domain panel a few times, and I'm keen on maybe doing a few more sort of, themed sort of shows and here and there. But time is an issue. Yeah, I've actually been planning a few of them, but that's the problem, is that I've been planning them for the last several months because with work, I could be going back to work in 2 weeks, right? And to plan events online, you generally need more than 2 weeks, right? Just to notify people. And if in 3 weeks on a specific date that I choose, I don't know if I'm going to be back at work. It's been frustrating. So I mean, I've been really lucky. I think most people I know have been pretty lucky. We live in a part of the world where this pandemic has been. It's not. I'm not going to say it's been easy to ride out because it hasn't been for many of us. I've lost people, but I mean, to live in Canada or in the United States, it's a really special thing. We're very lucky in North America to be where we are, because there's other corners of the world where it hasn't been so good. So I hate complaining to say that I'm day by day and whatever it is. It's a complaint on a very superficial complaint level. So I just don't take that the wrong way. I've been lucky. It's just that I can't plan anything. So yeah, just make that clear. Is that, and I'm not saying I'm not asking for sympathy on that front. It's like I've had it pretty good. So but yeah. So
now, one of the things that has definitely popped into my mind, just like left fieldish, is like, I guess now, do you invest in any CCTLDs? Like, I know everything .io, .vc, .ag, whatever, 2-letter. I'm like, man, things seem to be on a rocket ship ride for some of these CCTLDs. So do you invest or no?
I would. Well, I started with .co, so yes. But I'm at its peak. I think I had around 300 .cos, but that was when I was at the end. But that was in the end when most of them were like $1 promos.
What was that? So is that 1 word, 2 word combos?
They were like single terms, 1 words or single terms. Okay. And that was like in 2016. Gotcha. And by the end of the first cycle, I dropped a chunk of them. I think I was probably down to about 50. Like now I'm down to 12, right? So I'm down to 12.
So Arif, is that normal though for you in terms of saying, yes, I'll take a promo code, I'll go register a couple hundred of these within a strict parameter of, let's just say, a single term or single word or single phrase, and then not register them going into that second year?
No. Okay. Here's the thing: is that I would recommend it. If you're going to go in that, dip your toes into that pond, definitely do that. Definitely do that. Do not renew 100% of the domains that you acquired at $1 when the renewal is $25. Right. I just don't really operate in those anymore. Like I'm looking at my spreadsheet now. I have like 95%.com.
Of course you are.
I'm 95%.com, 2%.org, 1%.net, right? So that leaves, I have 19.biz. I have 3.cas, but I think those are more personal ones because I'm in Canada. I have 3.cc's, 11.cos, I have 20.infos. .infos, I have a couple .infos from before that I actually, so when I say 2016, that's maybe even a little bit of a lie, because I did get a couple of domains much earlier .infos, like I have diet.info, but that wasn't really, I got that maybe to build out. It was like, yeah, I know it's worth money, but it's also maybe to build out. And I think that was in 2011, 2012, 2013, I don't know, somewhere around there. But I had a small, I think I got webmaster.info as well. That was through a special GoDaddy auction. That was kind of like, that's what got my attention a bit. But otherwise, yeah, in terms of, I am a little reluctant for the .vcs and the .ios and the .ais. Mm-hmm. I think .ios are probably the strongest of those. The other ones, there are sales. I'm just fearful of how many sales there actually are, versus how many domains have been acquired.
Right.
Like it's like, I mean, there's certain people in this business who really know what to get, which words and terms to get. I see a lot of other domainers getting like 2word.vcs, 2word.ais, 2word.ios, and I think with .io now, I think it has grown a lot. Like you have to give .io a lot more respect than even just 2 years ago. Like if you get a great 2word.io, like, I mean, really great, it might not be such a bad investment today. I just don't have any .ios myself. It's just, I'm doing pretty well with .coms. So yeah, I would definitely, though, getting back to your question, if people are doing that, be careful with your price points, because your average holding cost for these repurposed country codes, the renewals are not cheap on some of them.
At all.
At all. Yeah. Like I've about 10 .tvs. .tv I like too. When it has to do with TV stuff. Especially as a generic term or something like that. I think it could be used for a YouTube channel or something like that. But again, like I have like 10, 11 of those. So the CCTLDs, I think you have to be careful in what you do. If you're operating within a country, that's fine, right? Because in some countries, the CCTLD is even stronger than .com, whereas in other countries they're not. But the repurposed ones, again, you just got to be careful, because the number of domains that actually do sell at prices that are worthwhile to invest in, I think are a lot smaller than people think.
Oh, totally.
And I think and that warning isn't to everybody, right? There are certain people who are making money with those domains, but I just fear, like, people hear, oh, you see now these .io sales going for 6 figures.
Right.
My fear is that people are going to start really dipping a lot of money into them, and it's going to be the wrong ones. But that warning is just as valid in .com, right? I see you go to I don't want to name any place, but you go to a certain domain forum and you see some people posting certain 2-word domains, and like 99% of them are like zero value .coms, right?
Yeah.
.coms. It's just that it's already difficult in .com, that dipping, when you step your toes outside of .com, it becomes significantly harder, because your costs are higher, your sell-through rates are higher, but sometimes the opportunities are there. So yeah, I don't say stay away from them, but be very prudent if you do go into those.
Yeah. Definitely. And that's one of the things that I think for most investors, it's, especially when you're entering, use caution at the highest level of when you're looking at Twitter, when you're looking on some of these forums. While it's exciting to get, hey, such and such bought this name for $40 and they flipped it for $4,000. That's exciting, but
it's only half the story.
Yeah.
And if to jump into something with only half the story, I mean, you can't do that. Like, I mean, it's like if you're in a boat, right, and you see this nice horizon of water, it's like, oh, you want to go jump in, right? Because you see this nice sunset and still water, whatever it is. But like, there's another half, right? What's below the water?
Right.
What's below the water, right? Are there rocks? Is there seaweed? Is there sharks? Is there
exactly.
So it's like you really need both sides of the story, and it's like and this industry there's so much information out there, right? Like go back and listen to your podcast. If somebody's listening, go back and listen to Alvin's previous podcasts. Go back as far as you can. Then go to Domain Sherpa. Domain Sherpa, I mean, all those old ones. I mean, obviously take them with a grain of sand, because some specific things within the industry have changed.
Right.
But a lot of the overall concepts are still the same thing. And just, I learned so much from walking my dog. My little buddy Steamie, as everybody knows Steamie. Like he's probably why I'm a success in this business, because I've spent thousands of hours walking him over the last X number of years. And listening to old Sherpas and domain name wires, and their podcast, the Josh's and yours, that since then. But when I started in 2016, there was basically, there was just such a mountain load of information on Domain Sherpa. So like I'm with Mike Siger, he's probably listening to this. Like there's very few people in this world who I'm more grateful to than him because of the socials that got me onto doing all the social stuff. I'm just learning a whole new aspect of the computer stuff and the internet stuff and I'm really enjoying that, but also for giving me the fundamentals of domain education, right? I mean, I probably would not be a successful domainer today if I hadn't absorbed all that information initially. And
I 100% agree.
Today, there's even more information, right? It's just, if somebody starts buying thousands of $1,000s of domains without actually getting information, it's their own fault, right? It's just all free. It's great. And then if you can afford it, take DN Academy with Michael as well. But if not, there's still lots of free information out there. As somebody who knows how much work it is, I'm very grateful to you and everybody who sits in your shoes. Andrew and JT and everybody. I want to start saying names because I'm going to forget one person. It's me like, oh, okay,
Keith
exactly. Keith is awesome because his are a little bit shorter, so I always listen to him when I'm cooking. He's like my cooking guy. He's my cooking companion. I always have certain things here or there. So it's like, but yeah. I mean, there's so much great information out there that it's just get to it, absorb information before spending too much money because it's not as easy as people make it out to be. I've seen a lot of people kind of come in gung ho and guns blazing, and then sure enough, a couple months later, it's like, oh,
another one bites the dust.
And then a year later, they're like, none of them are renewed. And it's like, well, I think it's important to learn from your mistakes to a certain point. I mean, do buy some things, but there's also such a thing as like paper trading. Like go through people's lists. And I'm not doing NameCult anymore, but if I was, I would tell people, don't even buy from my list. Take my list, mark down 5 that you would buy. What price point would you buy them at? See if you would have gotten them that. See if other people bid on them, and then take those names and ask people in the industry, were these the best 5 names? Did I choose right? Right? And it's not even if they're the best 5 names, because oftentimes, again, it's best domains and most investable domains are 2 different things, right? A good domain is not necessarily an investable domain. I've seen people like you go listen to some of the old Sherpas, and some of the Sherpas are saying, "Oh, those are great domains. This is a great portfolio." But then you listen to how much they paid for those domains. Right. I was like, no, those were not good investments. They'll be lucky to sell them for what they bought them for, right? So it's like you have a great portfolio, so they're all happy. But it was like, no, it's like, oof. What did you buy them at, right? Because that's the information you need to know if you're going to be a good investor. Is how much do you buy them for? What do you sell them for? That's your multiple. How much is that multiple versus your average holding cost? And then what's your sell-through rate? How much are you not selling that you need to pay for? And all that together, that's how you can decide whether you're a good domain investor or not. Are you profitable or not? And I'm very thankful, again, to everybody who helped me with my domain education, that I am profitable, and I've been for a couple of years now, and it's fun. It's like there's nothing, as I said before, there's nothing more magical than domains. It's like the perfect coming together of like logic and statistics and just hard data and art and imagination. And it's just it all comes together, right? And it's just there's very few things in the world that really merge such a spectrum of great different things, and it's magic.
Well, man, speaking of merge, like what about Clubhouse and the domain social? Like, how have you juggled both of those, or are you even on Clubhouse?
I got on Clubhouse a little late because I'm an Android guy. I got on Clubhouse, I want to say, it was in March. That's right, it was in March. I had my party hat when it was my birthday. It was like the week, awesome. My first week, the party hat, when it says your first week, it was on my birthday. It wasn't my birthday when I joined, but it was like that week, right? So on my birthday, I still had the party hat. So end of March, I got on. And I lasted, I want to say about 6 weeks or so. I met some amazing people there, and I want to get back on a little bit, but I also saw a lot of let's just say questionable behavior. We'll just leave it at that. You know, it's not so much the language. The language is one thing when you're representing an industry. I think I would choose that people use better language. But if you're in a closed group, it doesn't matter so much. But what I'm talking about in terms of questionable behavior,
we heard some strategies.
Is not about the language. It's about, you know, it was like groups of this group and that group, and people getting angry, and it's like it kind of. But I want to give it a go again, and we'll see. I mean, yeah, the social. I mean, it doesn't need to be linked to any one place, right? Now that I was always against starting stuff on Clubhouse when it was Apple only, right? Because I didn't want to leave people in limbo. People who were, you know, my friends from the social. I didn't want to leave anybody who had an Android behind. But now that that's changed, yeah, I might do a couple of socials on Clubhouse, maybe. Again, maybe, I don't know. it's a question of time, right?
Right. Well, a question of time, and it's also one of the things I think that's, in my opinion, most intriguing about the social is that there is a standard of, hey, we want you to have your video on if you can. And that has made a big difference.
It's, I mean, I'd like that. It's certainly not a rule. People are there. If people want to go for a walk and listen audio only, right? Like Clubhouse, that's totally fine. And I'd love to have you there. I do find that there's an extra level of a layer of communication that's communicated over video when you like it's you know, there's different filtration, right? There's different levels of communication. There's written, where there can be a lot of misunderstandings. Then there's audio, which is a lot better than written because you can still hear tone of voice and things like that.
Right.
But then there's also visual, where like somebody could say something, you're not sure it's sarcastic or not, or they're, you know, but you see them smiling, you know the context, right? It's there is another threshold there. But, you know, again, like for everybody to have their camera on, it's that just doesn't happen. It's not really realistic. But yeah, it's fun when people do. I do find it just feels more like a community when it's like that.
Right.
But, you know, nothing against Clubhouse in audio only. I think it's cool for a lot of people in that, you know, you can walk your dog.
Oh, totally.
and be on Clubhouse, right? Which is, you know, what I did for a while, until when I was tethering my phones, I realized how much bandwidth I was eating through. That's another reason, probably another reason why I took a little bit of a break. I have 10 gigs before they throttle it down, and that first month I think it was like 9 gigs of Clubhouse only, and then 1 gig of other stuff. So I'm like, okay,
it's like 9 gigs across 3 days.
Well, you guys know, and if you know anything from the socials, people listening here, you know, my dog Steamie, he's a little dash hound. He's a cute little guy. But there are some weeks in the summer where we can walk 100 kilometers. Wow. And he's a dash hound, little hot dog, short little legs. He's a good, consistent. Well, I mean, he used to be. He's a little bit slower now, but he used to be about. Oh, sorry. 100 kilometers is about 65 miles.
Yeah. Well, I was doing the math myself, because I was like, well, I walk 3 miles a day.
Yeah. We'll go out. We'll go out for 4 hours, 5 hours sometimes, you know, so, especially now that I'm, you know, obviously with COVID, it's like, you know, even more often, but, yeah. So, but he's like 4 kilometers an hour. So just, that's, you know, there are weeks when I walk for 24 hours. That's, I'm listening to podcasts, and for a while it was this Clubhouse stuff. So it's like, yeah, those hours go up and that bandwidth goes up, you know, so. But that's another reason why I'm grateful to you guys, all you podcasters, is that, like, gives me something to listen to while I walk a little Steamie.
Yeah, you made me think when you were like, Keith is your cooking companion. I'm like, cookingwithkeith.com. It's like, hey, there we go, Keith. We got your brand new name, brand new moniker there for your brand, Cooking with Keith.
Yeah, because with you and many other ones, it's like, yeah, they're about an hour long, which is fantastic. Yeah. But so I listen to you guys when I'm walking my dog, because with Steamie, again, we're out, you know, like 2 hours is a short walk for us. Let's put it that way. You know, 2 hours is like when we're taking it easy in a day. You know, it's like so those longer ones are really great for that reason. But
awesome. Yeah. Hey, well, wrapping things up, man, what would be your advice? What would you hope to share with new investors, or would want new investors to know if they're starting are thinking about getting into the domain investing, or rather the domain industry, or just start domain investing, like where should they start?
They should start by not starting. So, okay.
There's the show, guys.
But truly, like, get your domain education in. You don't have to not buy anything, right? Again, I think it's actually good for you to buy a couple of domains here or there at different places. Hand register a couple of domains, go through the expired domains, go to a couple auctions, get a small number of domains, just so you know what you're doing or the process, and you get a gauge on, well, did I do well or not? Right. But don't get so many in that it's too late to really correct yourself because you already spent all your budget. Right. Start, do a couple of things, listen, join the forums, listen to the podcasts. If you can afford it, DN Academy, with Michael Sager, reach out to him, figure out a way to get there, because that he's got a very technically structured course that's really one of a kind. Really boosts your education if you're starting there. But otherwise, just listen and learn. Ask for help. Ask for advice. And be careful. Be wary of people who just say, "Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good." Because when you start, most of your domains are going to be bad. And
real bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very few people who started off who might have had dip their toes. Like, I'm a little bit lucky in that I didn't really I started domaining when I started domaining in 2016, but I did have experience in marketing before. I had a little small marketing company for a while. I had my website before, so I did have an advantage, right? And I think if you have experience on the internet, it does help. If you have marketing experience, it does help. All these things add up. But get your education and just ask for help, ask for advice. Every week we have somebody new coming on the Domain Social, asking people with probably totaling a couple hundred years of experience in the domain industry. Somebody new who started 3 weeks ago, who comes on and asks, well, is this a good domain or not? And yes or no is often not enough. It's like the why is the most important thing, right? Because you're going to choose wrong domains, and you want to get that feedback as to why. Right? Because my fear is oftentimes a lot of people, and I've probably done it a couple of times too, where people ask for advice and is this a good domain? It's like you want to say yes because you don't want to hurt the person's feeling, and you don't want to be the bad guy to tell them, yeah, your domain is it's just,
your domain is horrible.
It wouldn't sell in a million years. It's just I don't get it. But and then unfortunately you have those people who are a little bit better than the others, whose domains are okay, but just not good enough to be investable, right? Like, I mean, I often say it's not, you cannot get good domains and be successful in this industry, right? You need great domains and above, right? And great is always a relative thing. So when you're starting, great or good is meaningless, right? Somebody listening right now for the first time, they don't know what a good domain is or a great domain is. There's no sort of template in their mind as to what makes up those things. But you need to get feedback and understand why some of the domains you're getting are not good, and learn from that. Learn from your mistakes, but go slow. Don't put too much money into it. And and listen to people for the first 5 minutes, and then tell that person to stop talking. Right? I think I said enough. I ramble a lot. I try to say as much as possible. And because I do want to help people. It's fun being on both sides.
Right.
I've met a lot of really cool people, and if you're new to the industry, I think the one bit of advice I could give you is focus on domains in industries you're familiar with, right? Like, I mean, there's certain industries that are just not good for domains, right? There's certain domains that just don't sell in certain industries. But I mean, in that context, you can reciprocate the help that other people give you, right? In that, like, if you're asking for help from people, it's great. And some people will help just like that. But it's also cool that if you can give them something back in return, right? Like, if you have information on a certain industry, then participate in the discussions. You might not know the technical aspect of the domains in a conversation, but you might be able to help somebody understand specifics about a certain industry. That, as a domain investor, it's important to know the industries of the domains you're dealing with, right? I mean, look, I've never smoked weed in my life. I don't have anything against it, right? Like I'll go out and I'll drink, and it's like, there's not much of a difference. But just to say is that I don't know that industry, right?
Right.
I don't know the terms in that industry. So it's like, if somebody's coming to me asking for advice, this and that, great. Okay. And then, like, you might know that I don't know about that industry. I know more now because I'm investing in those domains. It's like, that's something to somebody who doesn't know that industry that you can help them with, and so it's like, try to find people where you can have a synergistic relationship with people who are learning as well, learn from each other. I think one of the greatest things that came out like last year was when Mike Seiger with the DN Academy, he did his accelerator.
Yep.
And there was a group of people who afterwards came out of that as sort of all kind of like, I don't know, colleagues, right? I guess you could say. And they learned from each other. They stayed together. I think they have a group or whatever it is. And they still help each other, bounce ideas off of each other. And that's important in this industry, right? Because it's sometimes there are things about a certain domain that might be really bad that it's something you're not aware of in the world.
Right.
That happens to me sometimes.
And to add to it, some of those folks that came out of the DN Accelerator, say that fast 5 times, some of those folks now, not to say that, hey, by going that route, this is going to take you down the same course, but for some of them, they wound up becoming brokers for some of the top brokerages.
Yes.
And so obviously they have a bit of skill, a talent, and they added to that in terms of DN Academy and sharpened it and leveled up in certain areas. But I wholeheartedly agree that education is 100% spot on. Definitely don't skip it. Don't skip it by any means. So, hey, but last but not least, I mean, if somebody has been listening, journeyed with us this far, and they say, okay, how can I get with Aref or get in contact with Aref? Like, how might they do so?
So they could come on the socials, the main social. You go to thedomainsocial.com, thedomainsocial.com. You can subscribe there and come on every week. And basically, I send an email out right before the show with a Zoom link, and you can join us there if you want to join everybody. If you want to just contact me, I'm pretty available in the industry. You could get me at, I go by Adigi, so you go domains at adigi.com, or I think I still have my NameCult email. You can go to NameCult and contact me through there. I'm on the forums as well here and there. I'm not too far away.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome, man. With that,
Twitter too.
We're you're on Twitter?
Well, the Domain Social on Twitter. You can get me through there too.
Oh, the Domain Social. I was like,
I don't check it that often, but I'm bad with Twitter. I mean, I only got on last year because towards something you gotta get on it for the social. So I go through it in waves, but I'm a late bloomer when it comes to Twitter. But you can get me on there too if you want. I also go by Adigi, I think is my other one. And NameCult is also on Twitter, but I don't check them very often, but you can try.
No, that's good. Well, with that, we're out of time. So Arif, thank you again for joining us today and sharing your entrepreneurial and domain investing journey, my man.
My pleasure, Alvin. Again, thank you for all the work you do in this industry. I think, as I said, when I recommended people get their domain education, it's thanks to people like yourself who really, make this industry one where there's no excuse not to get your information, your basic education and information from, because there's so much out there, and you are one of the many people who were involved in that. So thanks to you too.
Yeah, well, man, thank you. And listeners, thank you for tuning in to Kickstart Commerce, where we share search marketing and domain name strategies to help grow your business. Please subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or Podbean. Last but not least, please visit kickstartcommerce.com to subscribe to the newsletter sharing tips and tricks about the disciplines of digital strategy. So thanks, and that's all for now.